Start that. Hopefully everyone's able to see my screen okay. It should say H5P Faculty Showcase. It has a little red screen. Welcome everybody. My name is Kaylee. I am an educational support technologist for the Faculty of Creative Industries, specifically School of Digital Performing Arts and School of Tourism, Hospitality, and Culinary Arts at our downtown campus. And I'm joined by my co-moderator, Greg Denemy. He is an educational technologist with Learning Systems Services. And we're really excited today to bring you a faculty showcase where we have 6 faculty members highlighting how they have used H5P. Greg's also a great person to have here because he's kind of the H5P guru. A lot of you have probably taken some training with him. He'll be able to offer some insight as well. But let's get started by, if you haven't used H5P before, this is an agenda of what we're going to be doing. Welcome. We'll talk a little bit about what H5P is, just to give you a bit of context if you haven't used it before in the past. And then we'll get right onto our faculty showcase. Again, we have 6 faculty members. They're going to be showcasing some of their H5P projects. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. If you have any technical questions, we're here to answer that. But if you have any questions about the faculty and their experiences in using these throughout their courses, that is definitely welcomed. And of course, you can type your questions in the chat if you have specific questions throughout the presentations. I'll be moderating that. And we'll make sure we get those to our faculty members who have so generously shared their time. So I'm just going to quickly pass it over to Greg so he can talk a little bit about what H5P is.
Thanks, Kaylee. So H5P stands for HTML5 package. And what it does, it allows you to create interactive content without any programming experience. So you're able to create these modules without any experience of coding or programming. There's none of that involved with this. It allows you it's really great for breaking up static content. So if you have a lot of text on the page that students need to read, what you can do is you can add these modules within your content just to give the students a break from some reading and interact with the module. They're really good for formative assessments. So those are the assessments that are ungraded, so maybe a self-check or just a self-assessment, just to make sure that the students, they can check their knowledge to make sure they're understanding what they're reading. You can also push them to the FOL gradebook if you'd like. So if you wanted to put in some H5P modules and give the students some participation marks for completing the modules, you do have the ability to do that as well. It has a responsive design. And so what that means is that it works on mobile devices. So they work on students' cell phones and tablets, but they also work on laptops and desktops. So it's nice that it's flexible among different devices. There are a variety of different types of modules that can be created in H5P. So we actually have about 28 different types of H5P modules that you can choose from. And I'm sure when we look through and see the different showcase modules that our faculty have for us today, you'll see some different types available. So I'll pass that back to Kaylee to start off our showcase.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg. So we will be showcasing 6 faculty members. I've put them in alphabetical order just to be fair about that. And we're going to start off our showcase with Kathy Butler, who is from the School of Tourism, Hospitality, and Culinary Arts. Kathy, I'm just going to hand over the host to you.
Okay.
Then you're good to go.
I was afraid I was going to be first.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, let's just see here. And hopefully you can see my screen now. I think
we can see that.
Perfect. All right. So I was kind of a geek and really enjoyed the H5P, and I found it kind of addictive. I won't lie. What I did is, we have hospitality students, and my students won't do the modules unless they're incentivized to do them. So I did connect them to the grade book. So what you see on my FOL page, what I learned is that I needed to close down the H5P on the due date, since it was worth marks. And then you'll see on the down here, like this will close. So I have an end date. And then a copy of the module opens without the quiz questions. So that was a really easy way for me just to manage that they could still see the content after the due date, but they did not get the grades. And I removed those quiz questions. So what I did to start out really easy is I did all of my, I don't like my voice there, but I did all of my voiceover through PowerPoint. And I just did the recording, like a lot of us have done the recordings on the PowerPoint. And then I saved it in PowerPoint as an MPEG file, MPEG file, and then just uploaded it. So it was super easy. And so I'll just let that go for a few minutes. I did find out that I really needed to please
by the end
put your sound on.
You will be able to
I'll just move that up a little bit.
identify and describe banquet service terms, determine which service is suitable for various event types.
I'll just let that go. The reason why I can't scroll quickly through is because I use that rule that the students can't scroll through, because I do have quiz questions. So you can see where there is a little circle here. That is a prompt that there is a quiz question coming up. So in order for my students to actually make them listen to the content and get to each of the questions, they have to actually listen to the whole thing.
Able to discuss and identify.
I don't know if you want me to, Kaylee, it might be too long to kind of get through to the first question. So I don't know if you want me to just kind of keep playing it and move to somebody else and have them show the question part.
You know what, Kathy? I think there are a couple of other people that are going to show the question part, but I think you described it perfectly. And it's a great feature to be able to put that on your H5P so the students can't just skip ahead and do all of the questions and move through that way.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
And I did learn that the hard way my first couple of modules.
Yes, exactly. Was there anything else you wanted to share, Kathy?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, perfect. So next we have Christy Hall from the School of Tourism, Hospitality, and Culinary Arts. Kathy, if you're able to hand the host rights over to Christy, that would be perfect.
You know what? I just gave up the host. So Kaylee, can you do that for her?
Yeah, I can't share right now.
Let's see. Oh, I'm not the host right now. Kathy, are you sure? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
We're good to go.
I got
Zoom
it.
is always a barrier. Okay, go ahead, Christy.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Christy Hall from the School of Tourism, Hospitality, and Culinary Arts. I teach mainly within the events planning program, but I also teach some courses across multiple programs like our hotel program and our travel and tourism program. So I started in this role in August 2019, before the pandemic. I was a new full-time faculty, and basically that meant I taught 6 months in person, and I've now taught longer online than I ever did in person. So since that happened so early on in my tenure as a faculty member last spring with the pandemic and everything, I took the 2 courses with Greg last summer term, like May and June, for the H5P training, the intro one and the advanced one, and it was great and I learned about it. But then I think you really start learning once you actually start doing it, right? So I had actually been tasked with some course development on my Swift last summer, so I started playing around with it. And I ended up using a variety of different ones, but not the one that Kathy just showed us. Actually, I haven't been doing the video ones. I've been doing some of the other ones that I'm going to show you. So basically, I developed it and I used it in one course last fall that I was teaching in fall 20. And then all 3 of the courses that I was just teaching now in winter, I had them in all 3. And I kind of follow the same format in all of them. So I'll show you what I do. And of course, as Kathy said, I learned some lessons from last semester when I was doing it. So I made some adjustments. So let me just, okay, so I'm going to share my other screen and hope that this works because I'm on a dual monitor right now. Can you see? It should say module 10
Perfect.
advertised. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a marketing course that's offered across a lot of programs. And so this is what we call our master site, because we replicate this for multiple sections of the course. So there's no actual students attached in this one, but I build the content for a variety of things. So one of the things that I like to do, and like structure wise, is I always set up my modules the same. So you can see that's like the intro section. And then down here, they always have a lesson introduction, my HTML lesson file with the material. And then how I use a lot of H5P is right here with, I literally call it a knowledge check. And I say, answer this question for the students so that they're prompted to go there. And one of the things I learned last term in the fall was that if you don't remind them, they won't do it. And sometimes even, if you're not giving them marks, as Kathy said, in this, I'm not giving them marks for it, but I was encouraging them to use it before the midterm and final exams, depending on the course. And what I did find is that they didn't necessarily use it week by week, but they went back and used it before the midterm. So in this particular case, I have a video up here where I always remind them as well every week. So every week looks the same. And when you click into the lesson, I have two ways that I use H5P in most of my courses. One is within, this is the actual lesson file, like material from the textbook and things that I'm going to talk about on the virtual classroom. So there's lots of graphics and things. And somewhere within here, in this particular module, I put it at the end, is where I use a knowledge check at some point. But this one is usually not one that would be like an assessment one. It's really just one to remind them. So in this case, these in H5P are called the dialogue cards, I believe. So they don't have to like actually answer. It's just to jog. They don't have to type anything in or select an answer. It's just jogging their memory. So this is talking about promotions. So for each one, it has a description and a question, what is it? And then they turn and there's the answer. And so in this particular one, there were 3 different ones about 3 different types of promotions for this particular chapter in the book, point of purchase displays, and then the third one. So in H5P, you can, I forget, I don't know, Greg might know, I'm not sure how many dialogue cards you can put in the same one. I think I've used up to 6 or 7, but I don't know what the maximum is.
I think that I want to say the maximum's 10 is what I want to say, but
okay.
Yeah.
So in this case, I just had 3 for this particular chapter. So at any point, they can flip the cards back and forth anytime, and then they can go back to the beginning. So they can use this in, just to jog their knowledge throughout the chapter. Sometimes I put it like in the middle of the lesson, depending on what the topic was. So this is the lesson file. But then after the lesson has been done, then they do the knowledge check at the end. So I always mix them up. If I did a dialogue card inside the lesson file, then I do a different format inside. Oh, Kaylee, because I'm the host, it says there's people in the waiting room. You want me to just let them in? Okay.
Yes, please.
There we go. I'm getting that little flag. Anyway, so for this particular module, then this one was a multiple choice. So for me, the ones I use the most often are the dialogue cards. I use a lot of the fill in the blanks, the multiple choices, the true falses, and the dragging of the words, where you drag the words into the appropriate things. So in this case, it was just all of the above. And then they can always check their answer. So if they get it right, it gives them a star, and then they can, you can reuse it again. And then you get the reports afterwards that tells you how many students did it or did not do it. So in this case, I think it's just going to say me. Yeah, because this one is a master site that doesn't have students attached to it. But in the normal environment, then it would tell you how many times they tried it. So just going back, so basically, in my module, I always try to label it really clearly for them by typing out, answer this question. It always comes after the lesson. And then, I mean, the biggest lesson that I found was that if you don't encourage them, then they don't use it. So that's what happened last fall is I had it in one course, and then, midway through, I realized, oh, okay, they're not really using it. And they started using it in week 8 because I started including it in my reminders in week 8. And so then they started using it. And so then this term, because I had it in a similar, I mean, each course is different, but they were all kind of similar to this, where there was a lesson file and then there was a knowledge check after the lesson. I just really tried to push them. And when I looked back at my reports, what I did find was, as I said, they didn't maybe do it in week 2, but they did it in week 6 before they had a midterm in week 7. So, you know, that was good. The other way I've also used it, I'll just show you quickly, even for a week where they were writing an exam. In this case, it's just within my intro in FOL. It's not within a separate file, but I just included a little reminder which chapters in your textbook will be covered on your midterm to remind them of which one it is. So, yeah, I mean, I tried to alternate the types of questions and use so that each week as they came back to the module, there was a different style, at least, of question. But I'm quite a fan of dialogue cards, I must say, just as reminders. I use those a lot. And then for the actual assessment ones, I use the other styles. So yeah, just mentioning it and reminding them. I think, does anyone have any questions? Other than that, I think that's what, that's the main way that I've been using it.
Everyone says it's beautiful. So
Oh,
that's perfect.
oh, thank you. I can't see the chat, but yes. Okay, thank you.
All right. So Christy, if you want to stop sharing your screen, next we have Karen Klee from the School of Community Studies. So if you could pass that off to her, that would be perfect.
Oh, okay. So I stopped sharing my screen, but I think it automatically took me off. Who's the host now? This is hard.
It might take just a second. I think it did the same thing with Kathy's as well.
Yeah. Okay, so Karen. Wait, Karen, okay, hold on, let me see. It's not, it doesn't give me, oh, make host, there we go, okay. Got it.
All right, hi, my name is Karen Klee, and I'm the academic coordinator for that, but I can't see, sorry, how I'm going to share my screen because I've got it myself now in the participant list. Oh, here we go, share screen. All right, so before I get started on what my H5P looks like, I have a little Prezi here. Can you guys see that all right?
H5P. Can see it perfectly.
Perfect. Okay. Because I thought I'd share with you a little bit of my journey because I teach now almost exclusively using the H5P platform. And so I thought I'd share with you some of my experiences so that if you're going to do something similar, you don't fall into some of the mistakes that I have made. So back in fall 2019, I got really excited about H5P because a fellow colleague was reaching through the screen, and she showcased it at one of our team meetings, and I just loved it. And so I thought I'm going to take this health class that I have a lab and 2 hours of theory. So 1 hour of a lab, 2 hours of theory, and I'm going to deliver it asynchronously for the theory and just keep the face-to-face labs. So that was my beginning journey, and I got so excited, and I was looking at some of the different interactions that people have showcased already, that I threw together a whole bunch of different interactions, and it was really cool, but it was a bit of a hodgepodge. So I decided after a little bit of time that I needed to streamline it. And what I found out as well is that my really good students do what really good students do, is they participate in all the interactions. And it was really helpful for our ESL students because they could go back and do those knowledge checks that some of the other presenters have talked about. The not so good students, however, didn't look at it because there was no incentive, right? Because I didn't have it integrated and I didn't have grades associated with it. So some would skip it altogether, and I totally knew that when they came to lab, completely lost. So I begged Greg like many, many times, and I got a license without going through the reaching through the screen. So I was really excited. So now I could integrate my H5P interactions directly into a lesson. And this is an interactive video, just a screenshot of one I do on nutrition. And so now I could see what my students were doing, right? So you saw some of those reports from other students. But some of the challenges, and some of the other presenters have talked about it, is how do I record that grade? I liked what the first presenter, sorry, I can't remember your name. I apologize. Kathy, yeah. She had to go right to the grade book. And I struggle with, especially asynchronous delivery, that they're going to do it all just before the midterm. And so I wanted to keep a rhythm. So I decided not to push their interactions to the gradebook, but using this report, I manually put it into a spreadsheet instead. And instead, I started incorporating all these little weekly badges that I would push out to students when I knew, when I checked the report, filled in my spreadsheet, if they got the H5P for that week, I started creating all sorts of different badges as a way for students to know they had completed the lesson and for me to keep track of them as well. So now I was narrowing it down to just two types of interactions two styles. One was the interactive videos and the other was the presentations. So this interactions were great for skills in the lab. For this is a medication demonstration, for example, and I have filmed it in the lab and then added all sorts of interactions and extra points. I can link all sorts of things in there. And then this is what a presentation looks like. So I have audios, information for them, and then knowledge checks built right into the presentation. So I started sort of streamlining things. And then in the winter of 2020, of course, the world turned upside down and I had to go to a different course, pharmacology, which I had never imagined before that I would be teaching online. And I decided in that 2 weeks that we had to change it to completely asynchronous delivery using H5P. And again, I stuck with these interactive videos and these presentations, but I still didn't have a branding. And what I found out after that very hectic semester that we all lived through was that for an asynchronous delivery, I needed to create a stable, consistent weekly rhythm, and I needed to keep it simple if this was the way I was going to teach moving forward. So what I've done now is I've ditched the videos and branded all my presentations, and I teach purely using the presentation format, which I'll show you. What I've learned, I'm never going back to face-to-face teaching of pharmacology. It's a 70% passing grade for this course. Although it was a lot of work initially, it has allowed me a lot more improved engagement with the students because now I can readjust my time to be giving them feedback on their weekly applied activities. My grades are higher, and believe it or not, my student satisfaction surveys have skyrocketed. They were always good, but they've never been this good for pharmacology. So the rhythm that I use now is a pre-lecture reading and quizzes, whether it's in health or pharmacology. It's an H5P based lesson and it incorporates applied activities with increased feedback. So what I'd like to do now is share a different screen with you. I will share this one. All right, so similar to another presenter, I used the, can you see the introduction to pharmacology with Parcelius here in the?
Yep, we can see that.
Good, okay. So I use the online templates, right, which are quite nicely branded as well, which gives you the overview of the information. And because this is a first lesson, it has the information about how to connect to their online textbook. And then I typically break the lecture into 1 or 2 H5P presentations. So this is basically an interactive slide deck. So I always start now with an introductory YouTube video. I have this brand of step 1, you watch, step 2, you interact or listen. And so I have a variety of different formats that I can use. So for example, when I'm ready to actually start the lesson, I always have a roadmap slide that says where we are in the textbook, where we are in their workbook. And this is how I actually deliver the lesson. So I have step 1, read, step 2, listen, step 3, interact. And here, this took a little bit of time, but I transcribed all my audios into text as well, so that, because we have students with hearing loss. So now it's much more accessible. And with the videos that I have embedded as well, because you can embed a video right into the PowerPoint presentation, or sorry, it's not PowerPoint, into the H5P presentation. So now it's step 1 is read, step 2 is listen and watch, and they can either listen to me or they can read the transcription, and then they can do various types of interactions. The interactions that I found work best are true and false, multiple choice, multi-select, and this is one of my favorites. This is, I like the drag and drop words, but these, oh, this one I did already, so I sort of cheated and practiced ahead of time. So this is a drag and drop where I can get them to sort things into different categories. So if I wanted them to distinguish between mild allergic reactions and anaphylactic reactions, I could have them drag and drop the different things into the different categories. And then they can check. Oh my goodness, I got one wrong. Oh no, that was right. It was all, the previous one was 9 out of 9. And then if they got it wrong, they can go back and do it again. And I award grades for this. So they get their summary at the end of the presentation. I always ask them to take a quick screenshot of this just in case it doesn't show up on the reports. And I award 10% of their final grade for participating in H5P lectures. And so again, I generate that from the reports, which of course, this is my summer one. Nobody has started it yet, but that's what I use. And then I use badges to keep students on track. So that is my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Are there any questions for Karen before we move on to Erin Rochard?
Karen, was that a presentation that you had in the H5P?
Yes,
okay.
Those are, I teach now solely with presentations. I do the interactive videos now in level 3, but this is a level 2 course. So I keep it simpler and just do presentations in level 2.
Getting lots of feedback about how fantastic it looks. So thank you for sharing that. If you have a chance, could you please pass that off to Erin Rochard from the School of Community Studies?
Hey, hi, Erin. Make as host. There you go.
Hi. That was really cool, and I'm excited because already what I was hoping is that I would learn more things about H5P coming here, and I definitely have done that. I didn't know about the reports, and I like the idea of including something like that. I have what I call engagement activities for my online lessons as well, but they're not necessarily part of H5P. Some of them are, and I'll show you in a minute. So I started, I was introduced to H5P through the Reaching Through the Screen training. I was actually sick the day that we learned about H5P, but I heard about it. And so I just started playing around and sort of experimenting with it. It was definitely a tool that I felt like there was a lot of trial and error just as far as even, I know I understand that it's supposed to be user-friendly and not programming, but it felt like the most technical thing in the world sometimes for, just different. And I've seen now they've done upgrades where there's been improvements, but there was definitely a period of time where I felt very, very clumsy with developing things. And then I got better and better. And I am somebody who, like, I use it throughout all of my lessons. And I'll show you guys, where did my, oh, here we go. I'll show you guys a couple examples. So here we go. I want to show this one first. So I have, similar to what Karen said, I sort of have like a format that's very structured for my lessons. It's H5P, and similar to Christy as well, like I have an introduction that gives them information, and then I will break my lessons into chunks, sort of just seemed like more digestible chunks of information for them. And I'm somebody who, I don't track their use of H5P. I put it throughout as opportunities for my students to engage with the material in different ways. I do think that I'm 100% positive that there are students who scroll through and don't do that stuff. And so it's interesting to me, I sort of took some notes of even getting screenshots of completion reports, because I think that's a great idea. The students really like it. And I have a few things that I use a lot of. The presentations, for sure. I'm just gonna make it a bit smaller to show you guys. What I'll do as well is if I have, so I've got my lesson in chunks, and then within lessons, I'll have a few presentations that will further divide it up. And then within the presentations, I really like them because you can embed so many things, and you can use a lot of the different functions. So I'll use the flip cards as well. I like the sorting strategies in check. And I like these because it gives them an opportunity to apply ideas. So for me, for this one, triggers for using substances and effects. So they're very often very simple, simple things that they can get, but they're going through examples of like, oh, applying what they've just learned. And I use exporting text a lot. So this is where I will have an activity where you can actually just type right in here. So your response, and then at the end of the presentation, there's a button to export the text, and they submit that work to me. So that would be one of the engagement activities for the lesson. And there's another, so I'll just show you guys so they just click export the text, and that's handy. And this is the one that has got a lot. So I'll have things like little, a little pre-check, and I like to have the feedback sometimes afterwards. Gets them a bit more information, but they're more compelled to look, I think, because they got it right, and now they get to hear why they were right. And I use, again, lots of these little things. The interactive videos. I like doing these summary statements as well, where they pick. They'll pick the correct statements, and then afterwards, what I'll tell them sometimes in some videos or in some lessons is, once they've selected all of the correct answers, read through it one more time, and they've basically just created a summary of the information that they've just learned. And this one's a cool one too, where they get to do sort of these drag and drops and different, it's not sticking now, but right, and then check for themselves. And the students say that they really like it. There's little videos, some are, I definitely noticed looking back over the pandemic, like the progression of like, very formal videos to slightly more disheveled, but the students like those ones the best, I think. And I wanted to show you guys this one as well, because what I liked is using flip cards for like with the visuals as well, and giving them, so with parenting styles, like what's a tennis ball, like imagine like using the metaphor to help them think and brainstorm. And here, I just wanted to show you guys one of the ones I really liked was the drag and drop with the text. And again, because it's really easy to make, and I'll do it with summaries of, oh, that was just pure luck. I'll create a little summary and then on Notepad, and then just star certain keywords. And it's easy for them to answer. They're not difficult, but to me, it's just them reviewing in a different way. And the students have given me positive feedback around interactives and around the, like they like videos, of course, and they like, you know, I had very few at first and they're like, oh, I love the videos. I'm like, okay, great. I'd love to do more videos of myself. So I have videos throughout, and I found, again, just really positive feedback from the students with being able to engage. And yes, of course, there are students who breeze through, definitely. I have sort of these mini engagement activities throughout attached to every single lesson. And I try to vary them. So sometimes it'll be like some sort of application. So write about what you've just learned. Sometimes it's a mini quiz or whatever the case may be. I may start looking at something like doing the screenshot of the H5P completion, but I like to just throw all kinds of things in there. And again, it could be a hodgepodge, but I think it's sort of, I think it's, there is structure to it, and it's offered in a way where there's sort of different options of things that they can do that sort of really compel them to engage a little bit more. I really like it. Now I'm at the point where all of my lessons I'll automatically just look through H5P and be like, okay, what am I going to add in now that'll be something different or some new sort of way to engage? And the students, yeah, I think it's been, and again, I would say as well, like I've gotten good feedback, student feedback surveys like that there's sort of different ways to engage with the material. They find it clear, and when it's chunked up, it's easy for them to digest as well, which they really like. They like that it's easy to understand and that they feel like they're learning, which is nice too, since we're here.
Thanks, Erin. Does anybody have any questions for Erin? Everyone's saying that it's wonderful. It does look great, Erin. Good job.
Oh, yeah. More videos.
If there aren't any questions for Erin right now, next we have Omar Smith from the School of Tourism, Hospitality, and Culinary Arts. So Erin, if you could pass the host off to Omar, that would be great.
Okay, doing that.
Oh, Omar, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good now.
Okay. Let me apologize for that. So I'm from the School of Hospitality and Tourism, and I first heard about H5P through those announcement that I think comes from Jason from Academic Excellence. And I heard a few other colleagues in my department speaking about it. So it was, let me see. So it was the fall of last year, coming towards like November, going into December. And I was speaking with Kaylee and some of my colleagues, and we, I guess, like everyone else, was disappointed with the level of engagement from just going into the pandemic and interacting with the students, and wanted to find out what are different teaching tools that you could use to make class more interesting and to increase participation. So that's when I heard about this, and a colleague showed me a few things. Kathy showed me a few things that she was doing. So I got a little bit jealous and was worried about being left behind. So I decided that, hey, I'm going to invest some time in it. So I booked some time with Kaylee. And this was about going into end of semester in December. And then I worked over the holidays to kind of bring myself up to speed because I'm a slow learner with technology. Now, the good thing about this was that I already had most of my lessons recorded. So it was just very easy for me to go with the H5P interactive videos. Now, I did contemplate some of the stuff that Erin, Christy, and Kathy was doing, but I felt a little bit overwhelmed with the clicking and this screen opens and this one open. I'm like, oh my God, I won't be able to do this. So I figured the H5P would work for me. So I'm going to start there and then I'm going to leverage what I know to kind of move outwards. So for those of you who have never tried it before, just want to share with you. So I don't want you to feel intimidated or overwhelmed by the process. It's fairly simple. So here's an example of one of my lessons. You know, I teach hotel front office. So this lesson was about registering at a hotel. So from here, I decided that, yeah, I could just easily convert this into a H5P. But then I got so carried away and I just did the conversion. And now I wanted to put in the interactions. And I found out that, hey, you know, I need to think about this a little bit more to say, where exactly do I want my interactions? And then that will enable me to work less. So I went back through my lessons and I'm like, okay, here's my first interaction. So I just got a blank image from PowerPoint or image stock, and I just placed them at strategic points throughout my presentation. Here's an example right there. Here's another example right here. Here's another example right here. So when this got converted to a MP4 file that I need to create my H5P, I already had my blank slates embedded. So all I had to do was just to make the interactions. And I found out that saved me a whole lot of time. Okay, so let me close this here. So here's an example of the conversion. Okay, so it looks here, these points that you see here are just different points of interaction for students. So the first one I started off with was just a matching activity. Okay, so this is just a sequence in terms of if you were to go to a restaurant, what things would happen first. So let me see here. For a car, you'd need to make a reservation. Then you'd need to pick up a car next. Then you'd need to use the car. And then you'd need to return the car. So this is a matching activities. Now, the cool thing about this, that if it doesn't apply, it won't fit in. So the students, if I were to take this one and put it here, it will just bounce back. So that is a cue to the students that it actually doesn't work for them to try something else. So this is one type of activity that I use. There's another type of activity where you could do like a single choice set. So this is where you could have like 4 or 5 questions, whether there be multiple choice or true and false, and they could just run right behind each other. So let's say in this particular activity, I chose this. The answer is wrong. It will tell you that it's wrong and gives you the opportunity to try again. You can try again, you hit check, continue, and then you move on to something else. So, so that was another one that I used. The next one that I used was like fill in the blank. So again, the students will just type in the response here. And depending on the response, it will accept it or reject it, or it will give them the opportunity to try it again. So I use a combination of different type of activities throughout my presentation, just to get the students engaged and to get them more participating and participating and engaged in the process. So that's actually how I use it. Now that I've gone through one full semester of using it, the next step for me is to leverage what I already know and seen some of the amazing things that my predecessors spoke about in terms of what they were doing and how they found that experience, is to draw more on their experience and try to make different styles, take different approaches, and the hope is to create a more rich learning experience for the students. So currently, I don't export the interactions into FOL. Again, that was just a little bit too much for me at that particular point. So moving forward, I intend to redesign my course to include some type of participation, and all of these interactions in the end could go towards student grade as it relates to participation. So that's my use of it, and the students really like it. And I like it too, and I'll just continue to engage in this technology moving forward.
Thanks, Omar. I really like your comment on building each semester, because you don't have to start off complicated. You can build as you go. And that's something that's great with H5P. Does anyone have any questions for Omar before we move on? Next, we're going to have Laura Westmus. So Omar, when you get a chance, if you could hand over host to Laura.
Okay.
I have a quick question for Omar, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Omar, you had your PowerPoints, and then what you did is you put in slides where you were going to have the interactive videos. And then did you transfer your PowerPoint into the MP3 file and then put it into the H5P and then put in your interactive videos?
That was exactly what I did, because I was so excited and carried away at first that, hey, I wanted to do this, and I wasn't thinking strategically about it. So when I converted my initial PowerPoints to H5P, then I realized I need a blank canvas to build a background for my interactions, especially the matching ones. And I found it like too much work to do in H5P. So I thought about it some more and say, hey, if I can just be strategic and say, you know, after every 4 or so slide, I'm going to drop something in. So that's where I got the blank canvases and just put them right through. And then when I did the conversions, they're already there for me. So all I had to do was just to build on the background. And I found that it saved me so much time, so much work.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's good. That's what I want to do. I want to incorporate more interactive videos in my PowerPoints, because I've done all the H5Ps through like on their FOL in their content, but now I want to incorporate it more into my PowerPoint. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would be happy. There are a lot of things that you did that I was impressed with. So we can always connect and, you know, learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, thank you both. Next, we have Laura from Language and Liberal Studies. So go ahead, Laura.
All right, Kaylee, can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Perfect. So I feel like this is a tough act to follow, but I'll share with you a little bit of my H5P journey. And so back in 2015, I was a content subject matter expert for one of the first eCampus Ontario offerings that Fanshawe was part of forming. And so we had these templates, and if we wanted a drag and drop, we had to create the text and send it away. And the folks at D2L would do the coding and send it back to us. And so I could see all of these possibilities, and I was so excited. I said, how can I do this on my own? And they said, learn HTML. I went, no. And so when Catherine, Steve, and Greg said that we could use H5P to do all of these interactives without having to learn the coding, I was just so excited. And so I was one of the first faculty who was part of the pilot. And I was looking to add engagement, as many of the other faculty have said, to online hours. So language and liberal studies, most of our courses are hybrid. 2 hours face-to-face, 1 hour was online. Now, of course, we're all online, but I was looking to create that engagement. And so H5P has been a really great fit. Like Omar, I started small and I've just slowly added. So I wanted to show you today some of how I've used it. So similar to many of you actually, each week I have a pretty standard module with an introduction, an HTML file with a lesson, conclusion, reminders, etc. And depending on what the topic is, I include different H5P exemplars or interactives, usually not for grades, but just to help students stay engaged. And the feedback has been really wonderful. So I copied and pasted a bunch of these interactives into a single file just to quickly show you today. And so sometimes at the beginning of a lesson, I ask students to make predictions. So a lot of what I teach is common sense. Students know about personality, they know about communication. And so to check where they're at, and unfortunately, here we go. And then there's a little bit of feedback. So this is a good bridge in. And again, making those connections between what students already know and maybe what they would like to learn. Like many others, I've used the videos and added some multiple choice questions to check for understanding. Again, when there's lots of definitions for review concept checks to drag and drop. This is one of the very first interactives and Greg helped me make this. Unfortunately, this sizing looks kind of weird right now, but Paul Ekman's work on universal emotions and asking students to check their own emotional intelligence and ability to identify emotions in others. My HTML files can get a little bit lengthy. And so I really like this accordion feature as a way to group together bits of text. Sometimes I'll use the tabs the other way. And so in this example, there's 4 different types of communication needs that students can learn about. And then I would say my most used H5P interactive is the image hotspots. So you'll see here Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Students can click on each to find out more about each of these types. This is a graphic, excuse me, that I found online. And I've also used it in a lesson where I've created my own. So in this example, students learned about different types of rewards or intervals of schedules of reinforcement. And so I just quickly made a table in Microsoft Word, and then there's elaboration on each. And then many other people like the dialogue cards. I find it's a quick and easy way to just get in there and highlight key terms for practice. And the other one that's very similar is guess the answer. And so students again have the opportunity to really put into practice or make sure they understand commonly confused terms. So we talk about intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, and then there's examples. Can you say enjoyment of something? Oh, that's intrinsic. Money, that's an external reward. So I don't think there's much more to say other than, again, so many fabulous examples already shared. And the student feedback has been very excellent. So I'm very grateful to Greg and everyone who's helped me to come along on my own H5P journey. And moving forward, I'm really looking to just incorporate more. And seeing the presentations today has just expanded my mind to so many possibilities. So thank you.
Thanks, Laura. If you can just pass the host back off to me when you get a chance, that would be perfect. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Laura? Or I guess at this point, it would be great just to open up questions open up the questions to the panel of all of our faculty who have been showcasing their amazing work. I do have one question I was holding on to that somebody messaged me, and I think Greg, not to put him on the spot, might be the best to answer this. But I had a faculty member wondering how H5P looks in the Pulse app.
So how it looks in the Pulse app, it would be pretty similar to I think what it looked like when you're viewing on the web, because when you go into when you're viewing content on the Pulse app, so you see your list of modules, and then when you click on it, it really loads it within, it's like using your browser on your phone, but within the app. So it would look very similar as if you were browsing to that same page on your phone, just through Fancha Online.
Okay, so hi, Greg, thank you. That was me, Blythe, who asked that question. And I asked because some of the other features that FOL offers don't translate very well to Pulse. And most of my students use Pulse to access the content, which we're telling them regularly they shouldn't, but they do. So they miss out on things like where I've written paragraphs in the beginning of a weekly content to outline what's happening. So if that's not translating to Pulse, how can I be sure that it is the H5P stuff is translating?
Like it should, and I mean, I can do some tests and follow up with you if there's specific modules you want looked at or tested. The one you're mentioning about the descriptions not appearing in the content, it is a known item that doesn't appear in the into the Brightspace Pulse app, because it's outside of the actual content item that you're talking about, where it has that description area, right?
Well, yeah, it's hard to describe without showing you, but
Yep.
Yeah. And then the replacement strings, they don't translate to Pulse either. So if I have in my announcements, it says, hello, first name. What you see on Pulse is hello, first name, not hello, Blythe. And when I first discovered, I was like, oh man, I thought I was being so helpful. And it's not. So, okay. That's good to know.
We can definitely touch base too. I mean, feel free to shoot me an email. We can definitely look into it further too.
Okay, those of you who are using H5P, have you had any students who access things through Pulse who have commented that they're either not able to interact or they're not seeing the material, or do your students not use Pulse? Maybe it's an odd School of IT thing. Anyone?
I think that small screens though don't always lend themselves very well to drag and drop. So you just have to be careful about that. So yeah, the other one's not so bad, but I have had feedback where if they're trying to access it even from a small screen, it can be a bit frustrating.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
So Erin has a quick question. She says, for anyone using reports for H5P, is it a reliable way to tell if a student has looked at the material?
I can answer part of that because I was using them for midterm and final exam reviews, and I found the report was quite reliable, but you do have to clear it. I think Kathy mentioned that you do have to clear it, because if you teach the course more than once, it will just keep adding up everybody. And I don't know, actually, Kaylee, you might know if it's a multi-section course. At one point I was seeing people from a different section on mine because the master site was replicated. I don't know if that was just a one-off or not, but other than that, I found the data in there quite reliable. It will tell you how many times the student attempted it, how many times they got it right, what day and time that they attempted it. So
thanks, Christy.
I've had a few students who's dropped off, and because I get them to screenshot if it has the date and time, I would say 97% of the time it's accurate and it's a student who didn't do it. But every once in a while, there is a student who doesn't, who legit has a screenshot. And so for the masters as well, I end up having to duplicate my presentations and share them with the part-time faculty so that theirs and my reports don't meld together.
Just took a quick look at some of my presentation reports and I'm a little upset right now.
Oh no.
It's okay, I'll be okay.
So Matt has a question. Does anyone use H5P tools in synchronous sessions? And if so, how? I don't know if any of our presenters have experience doing that, or anybody else attending as well. Share your experience.
I refer to them in my synchronous sessions. You know, if I'm going through a PowerPoint, then I'll refer them and say, you know, now that we're done this, you got to go do the knowledge check online for your 1 hour extra. Because in our school, we only had an hour synchronous, and then usually 1 or 2 other hours were asynchronous. So I would always refer to it during the synchronous time that part of their asynchronous work was to go do the knowledge checks and the H5P piece.
Yeah, I have some rate on my content. And when I was sharing my screen, if I was going onto my content to review for the week, I would show them like the H5Ps, and I would do a couple just for quick examples, and they worked fine and they were able to see them, no problem. So I have them like that. And then I also have it in a quiz format because mine are connected to a grade each week.
Thanks, Colleen. Anybody else have any questions? Anything on your mind?
I have a question actually for the fellow panelists. So when I'm building them, I just build them directly in FOL. Is anyone using H5P Studio? Do you build everything in the studio first? I don't, but I don't know if others do.
Kaylee, I don't know. I think because what you mean by the studio is I do go into the H5P and then I have like a whole file. And then I bring it into my FOL, into the content. So I don't build right into the content. I build outside of it and then bring it in. I find too, because I like teach with other professors, and so I've been creating these activities and then I attach them as so they are able to bring over those H5Ps as well onto their content.
Perfect. Thanks, Colleen. I think, Chrissy, were you referring to the eCampus studio? The eCampus Ontario studio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget what the exact address of it, but it's, yeah, the studio.
Yeah, so we do have the eCampus Ontario studio, which is great. If you guys do build in there, it's shareable and it's also searchable. So if you want to integrate any H5P that have been created by other college instructors across the province, you can search in there and see what has been created in your area. And you may be able to take that depending on the copyright on it and the sharing licenses, but you may be able to take that and kind of adapt it for your own course. And I think I can pop the link in there in the chat so you guys have that. Actually, I have the link in this PowerPoint, and I'll send you guys all the PowerPoint at the end of the session so that you guys have the link to that and all of the different guides that you can use for H5P. Are there any other questions before I talk about help? Oh, Kim, perfect. Thank you. Steve has a question. Has anyone used the eCampus file or modified one? I can speak from my experience when I teach. I have modified one before because I teach communications, and there are some great ones that have to do with business writing. So I have taken that and modified it, and it's pretty simple. I know that's probably you're saying for me to say that that's not an accurate portrayal, but I do find it pretty easy and straightforward. There's great instructions on how to do it. And if you ever need help, your educational support technologists are there to help you. Any other questions? All right, if there isn't anything, just a reminder.
Kaylee.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. Let me just put this there. I did get one feedback from one student that said with the interactive videos, when he was reviewing, it maybe was a little bit challenging for him because sometimes, you know, you're speaking and finding that exact spot where the professor said something. So for him, I actually just loaded up a copy of a PowerPoint presentation that could help, but overwhelmingly most persons were okay. I must also say that it's a great opportunity to collaborate. So if you're teaching one course with another professor and that professor has skill sets with maybe H5P presentation or H5P accordion or any of the different styles, then it would be a good way for both of you to leverage what one person knows and what the other person doesn't know. And then you could maybe put together something that's super fantastic, because one person could build one component and the other person could build another component of it that maybe the other person is not necessarily or fait with. And I think that I'm looking to use that approach moving forward. And I think also for those who are contemplating doing that, that's another way that you could teamwork and get a lot done.
That's a great note, Omar, because I did have a question earlier about non-full-time faculty tackling this. And I've seen in our area, Colleen's someone who's done a fantastic job as a non-full-time faculty, but has really tackled using H5P. So it can be done, but collaborating with the people you're teaching with, that's invaluable. I think that can really help save you time, and you can share it. You can collaborate with those. So that's great. The other thing that Omar noted is providing the content in a different format. I know I've seen some of my instructors, if they're doing that interactive video, they may just pop up a link to the PowerPoint just in case there's any instance where a student would rather interact with the PowerPoint, maybe just in terms of accessibility or what they're comfortable with. So popping that up there is helpful sometimes as well. Any other questions? Well, I will send out the PowerPoint. It has links to the H5P tutorials as well as the help guide for Fanshawe Online. If you are looking to get some more training, Greg runs 2 fabulous sessions on H5P Introduction and Advanced, and you can find that in Fanshawe Learns. Thank you to all of our faculty who shared their experiences. I think this was fantastic, and I learned a lot, and I think everybody else did as well. So thank you all for joining us, and stick around if you have any questions, but if not, I hope you have a lovely afternoon.
Kaylee, I have